So finally, we are going to see a rematch between Kath and the Four Knights of the Apocalypse. The Four Knights seem powered up more than ever. They haven't fought Kath in about 150 chapters, whereas Kath coming off a fresh loss to the Seven Deadly Sins. But towards the end of the chapter, who holds the advantage isn't so clear. Lately in the series, Lancelot has taken center stage in the narrative, and Nakaba Suzuki continues to skillfully juxtapose dichotomy through this narrative that continues its direction towards a masterpiece brick by brick. In this video, we're going to review chapter 246 and talk for a few minutes about how and where this piece fits in the larger puzzle. And let's talk about it. To kick off the chapter, we still pick up after Galahad and Lancelot squabble, but we skip the part where they kind of make up and, they exchange words. Instead, we just get straight into the explanation of how the Knights of the Holy Grail got lost in what's assumptively the past. It's told through a flashback sequence voiced over by one of the Knights of the Holy Grail to give us both a verbal and a visual POV. In a flashback, we learn they serve a version of Arthur in the future, who I'll refer to as the variant of Arthur. The variant of Arthur they serve sent them on an expedition. They got lost in time when they went on this expedition. They find themselves in the presence of the fake Arthur, which is just Kath. Fake Arthur, or Kath, suspects the Knights of the Holy Grail belonging to a different timeline, as he should, as the 95% shareholder of Chaos, and attempts to leverage that by overriding the Knights of the Holy Grail's mission through deceit and sending them to go assassinate the Four Knights of the Apocalypse. There is plenty here to theorize, and there are quite a bit of holes to fill regarding the origin of the Knights of the Holy Grail. And I say that because the bigger questions I'm about to say surrounding their name and their presence and what is the assumptive past aren't even being asked anymore, much less explained. We're starting to lean towards the next thing, what I'll get to soon. But these questions are: how and why is a weapon made to destroy? The Knight of the Holy Grail is, remember, that's King Arthur's blood inside a chalice that they're going to go get weapons made out of to go destroy Kath, because it's the only thing that can get rid of a pest like Kath. How did that become a knightly order of the future? Does the real Arthur get redeemed, or do they just serve Kath without knowing it? They serve Arthur in the future. That much is explicit, but which Arthur is it? Because we really don't know. They don't say. And how don't they know if it's the real Kath? Which I don't believe for a second that they would just be serving Kath and not know it. How do their parents not know or not tell them that they're serving Kath? And the assumption is that these are heroes of Camelot. The Four Knights of the Apocalypse are heroes of Camelot serving Arthur. So that couldn't be the case either. And how do they exactly end up in the past? That part is left the most vague. They just leave their houses, they traverse outside the kingdom, and then boom, just like that, they're in the presence of Kath. It doesn't really make much sense. We can contextualize answers from the flashbacks and take educated guesses, but ultimately, most guesses we'd just be wrong about it. And I know, like, on one hand, it's not substantial enough to say nothing ever will be. The only person who knows for certain is the team writing this. But on the other hand, that's what's fun about this. It's, the theorizing and the waiting theories in between chapters as we go. And based on the way we're pacing about in the story, I'd say we're not meant to know just yet. There are a lot of pieces that are unfolding simultaneously. We're getting the outro to the Seven Deadly Sins as Elizabeth and Bon are on their deathbeds. We have Percival's character growing and unfolding. We have, as of right now, Lancelot's the primary person whose story is unfolding, along with Gawain, I'd argue. And right now, it just feels like Lancelot and his sidekicks. And then on top of that, we're finally getting a little bit more about Merlin and the real Arthur. And then there's this fight back to Kath. Kath has been stripped of his fake Camelot. So there's a lot that's going on here, and a lot of pieces moving at the same time. So trying to get them all to fit here, I think this was well done. This chapter was well put. by Nakaba Suzuki. He could only answer so much. So moving on from there, Tristan informs them that Kath is who Kath is, and that he's the one who manipulated the group. Towards the last couple pages of this week's chapter, which is what I want to focus the rest of this review about, is Kath reveals himself to the groups, the four knights of the Apocalypse and the Knights of the Holy Grail. He takes the fight to them. Previously, we're underneath the impression that they'd have to rush back to Leonis and prepare themselves to go fight Kath or go investigate Kath's whereabouts. But no, he just shows up, and he shows up saying like, "Jeez, I thought you guys would have taken out at least half of them, but you didn't. You failed to do so. So I'm gonna have to act as the cleanup crew." And as of right now, it really feels like Kath, like, what are you doing? This is a dumb move. Lancelot, I believe, even says it. This has to be a dumb move. Not only did Kath not stand a chance against Arthur when he was, or not only did Kath not stand a chance against Lancelot, back when Lancelot was 16, Lancelot has come a long way and now a grown man and on this tour where he might just be the strongest combatant we've seen throughout Seven Deadly Sins and Four Knights of the Apocalypse, just outright. And on top of that, he's accompanied by a mature Tristan, a matured Gawain, and a matured Percival, who Percival and Tristan are engaged and married. And in Percival's case, he's got 2 children on the way. So he's got a life that he's fighting for right now. So when you put it in that perspective, the Four Knights of the Apocalypse have not just the mental but a physical advantage and strength and numbers. They hold all of what seems like the logical advantages, but Kath reveals that fight with the 7 deadly sins was him buying time to make a couple of moves, and what he reveals next kind of strips all of that rational and logical advantages I was just explaining out the picture, as he holds up Guinevere's limp body and says, I've acquired this thing right here, as he just wiggles it around. And the chapter ends with Lancelot in this like heroic, like, I gotta face the ultimate evil, stand up to this ultimate monster with all these things on the line type of pose against Kath. And that takes, I think, all the rational thinking out of Lancelot. Was already in this chapter a little flustered about the idea of having a kid with Guinevere's. They're not even officially together yet. So not only does he have, his feelings about that are already a little flustered about it, but now he's got to fight for it. He's got to skip the part where he accepts it all the way to the part where he has to fight to keep something that he even know he had. And that's not to take away from Galahad, who sees his mother, who's at a younger age, a much younger age than he is. He's in the past, and now he's got to fight to not only keep his mother safe, but to ensure that his own existence comes true. And then on top of that, you still have the other 7 members from both groups that are, going to partake in this fight. So this is going to be quite the clash. But I do want to take a second to talk about the juxtapositioning of Kath versus the Lady of the Lake. If you remember from a couple of videos ago, which I'll attach, the Lady of the Lake is another child of chaos, if you will. So in chapter 218 of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, Kath communicates telepathically with the Lady of the Lake, and they address each other as siblings created by chaos. Kath and the Lady of the Lake speak as direct entities born from the same source, and Kath tries to get her to abandon the human realm to help him out in his endeavor, but she refuses and calls him weak. And I think this is out of competitiveness, because the Lady of the Lake had finally found a vessel that she was looking for to hold all of that power. And what her end game is, I truly don't know. That wasn't said, but she calls him weak and calls him helpless and a helpless brother before exposing his true nature. So with that being said, they have this duality, this dichotomy of that's meant to represent the contradiction of chaos, which is simultaneously holding pure light and pure darkness, immense beauty and absolute destruction. Kath and the Lady of the Lake are another aspect of opposites, of opposing aspects in this cosmic nature, if you will. Kath is created as a direct manifestation of Chaos's obsessive desire for power, malice, destruction, etc. Whereas the Lady of the Lake, you could argue, has this infinite amount of magic. So there's no desire to get more of it. Instead, what she desires is someone to hold it, like a guardian, overseer, like a guide for its own power. So it's another good versus the ultimate evil in a sense, even though the Lady of the Lake has her own contradictions and her own evil doings inside the narrative so far. So that being said, we have a lot to expect for chapter 247, which should be coming out in the next couple of days by the time this video drops. If you made it this far and you enjoy seeing content like this, I will be making more reviews on Four Knights of the Apocalypse and presumably more series to come. So like and subscribe for more. And with that, thank you.